Hello and a very warm welcome to yet another scintillating edition of the program CAC Weekly, a weekly program that keeps you abreast on the activities and achievements of the Corporate Affairs Commission. My name is Rashid Mahi. Coming up, CAC partners federal lawmaker to empower Nigerian youths, plus focus on company auditors and secretaries. We will be right back.
Are you a POS operator in Nigeria? Then listen to this announcement.
Registration with Corporate Affairs Commission is mandatory to all sole agent, super agent.
That is why the CAC took steps to make it easy for you. It is now as simple as ABC, with a process designed by the CAC to work seamlessly without taking so much of your time.
These are hard-working CAC staff dedicated to entertain applications from the fintechs through the various APIs granted to them from their respective platform for ease of doing business in Nigeria.
And you can be happy too by trying this simple-to-use platform. There is, however, a penalty for failure to comply. Banks are mandated to freeze your accounts for operating illegal businesses in Nigeria. There's also a deadline of just 2 months to regularize your POS business. Register now and ensure your business is safe. Visit the CAC website at www.cac.gov.ng. CAC, committed to prompt and efficient service.
Let's begin from the Confluence State, where a youth empowerment scheme took place in collaboration with the Commission. The Corporate Affairs Commission, in partnership with Senator Natasha Akpoti-Oduagan, has flagged up the registration of 2,500 businesses in Kogi Central Constituency. The initiative, which is in tandem with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's Renewed Hope agenda, is aimed at, amongst others, promoting the formalization of unregistered businesses and creating jobs for the youth. A groundbreaking ceremony took place on Saturday, 7th September 2024 in Ihima, Kogi State. Senator Akpoti, who is the chairman of Senate Committee on Local Content, said the initiative was part of her continued efforts to drive innovation in governance and impact the lives of indigenous students of Kogi Central origin in tertiary institutions across the country. The lawmaker, who described herself as a social entrepreneur advocating for self-reliance and skills for sustainable development, turned political reformer, added that students, market women, and other business owners will have their businesses registered at her own cost. The Registrar General and CEO of the Corporate Affairs Commission, Hussein Ishaq Magaji, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, was represented at the event by Mutahu Bello, Assistant Director of Business Names Department. The Registrar General stressed that the registration will accord them legal recognition as well as access to government grants and loans, amongst others. CAC Weekly reports that beneficiaries of the on-the-spot registration include students from Kogi State Polytechnic, Lokoja, Kogi State University Ayimba, Ahmadu Bello University Zaria, Confluence University of Science and Technology Osara, the Federal College of Education Okene, amongst others. We say congratulations and best of luck to the young and talented entrepreneurs, and kudos to distinguished Senator Natasha. Moving on, let's cross over to our interview segment as we unveil yet another brand new resource person in our interview segment. Please join Mr. Ayomike Jolomi, Assistant Director Registry, as he becomes our second male brand new resource person. He will be talking about company auditors and secretaries as enshrined in the provisions of CAMA 2020. Sit back, relax, and enjoy watching.
Mr. Orise Jolomi, LAWMAKER, Assistant Director, Registry Department. Many thanks for joining us on the program again.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Today we are discussing auditors and secretaries. I know we've done this a number of times, but it's good to hear it from the Registry Department straight up. But before we go into how important they are, their responsibilities, their qualification, and all of that, what is the thinking behind having an auditor and a secretary as a company?
Well, let me start with secretary. It's good to have a secretary because being the secretariat, custodian of all companies' records, and perhaps the person in charge of filing whatever needs to be filed, especially those things that should be filed with the Corporate Affairs Commission and so on and so forth. So when you are not exempted, you should have a company secretary because you need it, and the law says you should have one. It's not compulsory for small companies to have a secretary, but if they want to, the law doesn't stop them from having secretary.
What does CAMA 2020 say about auditors and secretaries?
Companies should have auditors, and their auditors needs to be filed with the commission, and or the appointment needs to be filed with the commission. But again, they are exempted from appointing auditors if, for instance, the company has not carried out any form of business or operation since inception. They're exempted, yeah.
Okay. So who qualifies to be an auditor, to be a secretary? Is it that I can just wake up one morning? Because I know how to add figures.
In the case of a company, a PLC, for instance, the PLC says anybody who is a member of the Chartered Institute of Secretaries and Administrators, or a legal practitioner, or an accountant belonging to any professional accounting body registered in Nigeria, or brought into being by Act of the National Assembly, or anybody who has acted for 3 years as a secretary in a public liability company 5 years prior, to his appointment. These are the qualifications for appointment for a publicly quoted company. But in the case of a private company, the directors will appoint anybody they think is qualified to carry out the duties of a secretary. There are no basic qualifications, prescribed for that role, as in the case of qualifications prescribed for a person, taking up that role in a public limited liability company.
What about secretary?
That's secretary, I just told you. And then for auditor, yes, for auditors, an auditor again, to be appointed as an auditor, you need to be qualified to be able to perform the role of an auditor, which would entail, going through the financial statements of the company and actually agreeing with the financial statements, and indeed, advising or agreeing that the rules of the company carries out its activities the way they are supposed to carry out the activities,
What are the responsibilities of a secretary?
Well, number one,
Company secretary.
yes, number one, you need to attend all meetings of the company and advise, as the case may be. The company secretary, has a dual responsibility in that administratively he may be responsible to the chief executive, And then functionally, he's responsible to the chairman. You know, the chairman doesn't engage in the day-to-day activities or running of the company. You know, so the company secretary is prepares, he advises the board, he advises the management. He performs secretarial role for the board, performs secretarial role for the management. He makes sure that everything that needs, every record the company needs to keep is kept. He makes sure that things that need to be filed, especially with the commission, are filed, you know, as at when due. He ensures that compliance rules are properly followed, so on and so forth. Yeah.
So what's the difference between a company secretary and a normal secretary, a normal office secretary? There's the striking difference.
A normal office secretary is just, you know.
You also take note?
Yes, but I mean, such a person is a clerical staff. Okay. But in the case of a company secretary, you are a management staff. You are high up there.
Okay. Okay, and you must be very, very experienced.
Oh, indeed. You before you are appointed company secretary, you must have some skills to show that you can actually perform those roles.
Oftentimes, people mistake company secretary to legal. Or do they play a joint role?
Generally speaking, like I said earlier, the law requires that every PLC, public limited company, I mean, they have qualifications for their secretaries. And one of those qualifications is that the person should be a legal practitioner. One of the qualifications. So generally speaking, most company secretaries of these entities are usually legal practitioners.
Okay. From experience, would you say that companies keep to the requirement when it comes to employment of auditors and secretaries?
Yes, by and large, they follow what the law says. Right now, I can tell you that in the case of, even though there are penalties prescribed for both, appointment of secretaries, you know, are usually reported and filed with the commission more frequently than appointment of auditors. I can tell you that for free.
So what are the sanctions for those who do not follow the requirements?
There's a penalty against the company and the directors as prescribed by the company's regulations.
Okay. So let's come to, at what point does an auditor err or makes mistake?
Do auditors make mistake? Well, yes, because they are human agents. They are liable to mistakes. I could say that, but an auditor is liable to be sued by the company if they accrue any damage, if they accrue any loss as a result of the negligence of the auditor. You know.
At what point, you know, does the commission itself, you know, penalize the auditor?
I will not say we penalize auditors. What I would say is that we may penalize a company for not filing the appointment of the auditor. The law requires
mistake that auditors make.
I couldn't say. Perhaps common mistake. They would pass statement of accounts that they are not supposed to pass. But I'm not in a position to say an auditor has made a mistake. I'm a lawyer. I'm not good with figures. If the accountants make mistake during computation of the annual statements and the auditor doesn't see it, or the auditor passes certain things he's not supposed to pass, you know, one can say he has erred. But I'm not one to say that, or the commission for that matter, may not raise issues that auditors have made mistake.
I'm asking because this is where it all ends, when it comes to companies' records, companies' audit report, financial statements, and all of that. And you've been dealing with them for decades. So what is the common mistake that most times that happens that the commission will call the attention of the company or the auditor and to say, instance, you need to go and reconcile A, B, C, D.
When companies file returns, companies other than small are expected to file their financial statements along with their annual returns. When we see discrepancies in what the financial statements say and the records of those financial statements as filed in the annual returns, we can raise flags and query them. For instance, if your turnover in your financial statements is different from what you are reporting in your annual returns, it's ground for query. So we just query the application send the thing back for them to reconcile.
Okay. Before we started the program, you said there's a collaboration with the Federal Inland Revenue Service. So most times what you give to FRS is something that you already will also see.
What the companies file are open
documents.
Yes, the documents that they file with us. The Federal Inland Revenue Service will also see those documents.
Okay. So there'll be no room.
There is no room. Yes, I would say there will be no room. Is whatever you bring up that every other person will see.
Okay. Let's go back to some of the key, will I say duties that an auditor is supposed to stick to beyond just financial statements?
The auditor is expected to make sure that the company carries out its activities. There's due process, generally. There's due process, there's compliance in carrying out their activities. When these things are not properly followed, it means in time, perhaps the company could go under. It is the duty of the auditor to make sure that rules and procedures are followed to the letter.
For companies that wind up or go under, what happens behind the scene? Is it that the auditor didn't advise well, or what happened?
It's maybe possible. We can, when, for instance, I can tell you personally that I hold the view that when the office of the chief executive and the financial controller and the auditor are compromised, such a company will go under. But where the office of the auditor is not compromised, things could still be remedied, even though one of the other two is floundering. So the role of the auditor is very, very important.
From experience, do you think Nigerian companies give auditors free hand to operate?
The auditors, I don't see why an auditor should be encumbered from doing his job.
Are they not compromised one way or the other?
Well, if they I can't answer that. You are compromised if you want to be compromised, but the office of the auditor is independent.
Okay. Even those on contract basis?
Independent.
Okay. Are you supposed to be independent?
Independent.
Okay. All right. If you are going to be talking to a company right now, either PLC or limited liability company, what exactly will you be telling them as regard auditing and secretary?
I will tell them to comply with the provisions of CAMA 2020. Once they do that, they are good.
Right. Have there been sanctions?
Oh yes.
Over the years, yeah.
We sanction companies.
So which one do better? Is it the legacy company or the companies after CAMA 2020?
For me right now, I don't use the phrase legacy companies because in my humble view, we shouldn't. All companies right now are deemed to be registered under the 2020 Act. So for me, there's no legacy. There's no
But they do exist.
Yes, but I can tell you for free that very big companies generally comply with the law. It's the smaller ones that infract the law, from big companies file returns as I went due. I mean, it is almost impossible. To the best of my knowledge, companies like First Bank, Chevron, and so on and so forth, are never found wanting. They file everything they are supposed to file as at when due. Julius Berger, you name it. Perhaps because I attribute it to the fact that they have the capacity to engage experts along the way.
But we have seen banks in the past who file everything and after some time they go under, and then you ask yourself what really happened behind the scene.
I mentioned earlier that when the office of the chief executive, the financial controller, and the auditor, when those three offices are compromised.
So it means you can file correctly.
Indeed.
But meanwhile, your records are still, behind the scene, they are shaking. They are not what they are.
Indeed.
So who checks for that?
Well, I would say in the case of these big companies, they're external auditors. They are auditors. If they are supposed to raise red flags and they do not raise these red flags, the things will go under. It is they who should raise those flags.
Is the commission going to make it mandatory for red flags to be raised as soon as they are spotted? As soon as something fishy is spotted?
I don't see how the commission will have the ability to do that without prior knowledge. For instance, the commission, I believe, has powers to go through records of any company when a petition is made in that regard. But otherwise, we generally do not exercise that power.
Okay, until there's a petition.
Yes.
And that might take ages to come.
Oh, well, they come. We receive petitions from time to time.
All right. I'm afraid we just have to leave it here. Mr. Orishe Jolomi Ayomike, many thanks for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for that entertaining interview, Mr. Jolomi. Now take a look at this message on the importance of the Persons with Significant Control PSC filing, stretched from the Registrar General's desk.
Did you know that it is now mandatory by law for companies to declare all persons with significant control of ownership of company to the Corporate Affairs Commission (CAC)? Listen to the Registrar General of the CAC.
By the extant regulation in Nigeria, the identity of the person behind any company must be disclosed.
By virtue of Section 119 and 791 of the Companies and Allied Matters Act of 2020 and the Person with Significant Control Regulations of 2022, the law aims to enhance transparency in corporate ownership across Nigeria.
Any person or any individual with ultimate power or with 5% interest holding must disclose his identity.
Under this law, any company that fails to disclose the beneficial owner of its company or the ultimate person in the company who has influence either directly or indirectly, or the person with 5% shareholding and above or voting rights may face serious consequences.
The law required that any person who assumed that position must disclose that position to that company within 7 days. And the company must communicate same and file same to the Corporate Affairs Commission within 30 days.
The identity of the beneficial owner must be a name of a natural person. Failure to comply attracts daily penalties imposed by law.
If it is a natural person, it attracts 5,000 daily from the date of breach. But if it is unnatural person, it requires 10,000 from the day of the breach to the day of compliance, and it also attracts administrative penalties by the Corporate Affairs Commission.
The CAC reserves the right to refuse to receive any filings from any non-compliant company or even to list the company from its register. For more details, check the Person with Significant Control website at bor.cac.gov.ng or visit the Corporate Affairs Commission's official website at www.cac.gov.ng. CAC, committed to prompt and efficient service.
And what a wonderful delivery there by the RG. And now, Do you know that by the provisions of Section 421, subsection 1 of CAMA 2020, the annual return of a company limited by shares or guarantee or unlimited shall be completed, signed, and delivered to the Corporate Affairs Commission not later than 42 days after the annual general meeting for the year? So have you updated your records with the Commission? Well done if you have, and if you have yet to do that, please hurry now to www.csc.gov.ng to file your return to avoid being struck off. The CSE remains committed to working hard to provide prompt and efficient service to customers in line with global best practices. And that does it for this week's edition of the program, CSE Weekly, and we do hope you enjoyed watching. For comments and inquiries, please take advantage of our social media handles and helplines. On Instagram is Corporate Affairs Commission. On Facebook is Corporate Affairs Commission. On X, formerly Twitter, is at CSE Nigeria 1. Our email address is cservice@csc.gov.ng. Our website address remains www.csc.gov.ng. Our call center number is 070-8062-9000. Do join us next week for another interesting edition of the program CSE Weekly, same time, same station. And for me, Rashid Mahe, and the whole team is bye for now.